building communities and cultures where we can have real relationships with other human beings on our same path who share our same goals. I think that is the untapped potential that is going to become even more important over the next decade and beyond.
Expanding possibilities, the Mindset Zone.
I'm your host, Anna Melikian, and before we start with today's show, please remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can find all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. Today, our special guest is Gina Bianchini, the founder and CEO of Mighty Networks, an incredible online platform focused on helping changemakers build a business powered by community. And we are going to be speaking about how to create thriving and successful communities. So welcome to the Mindset Zone, Gina.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And let's start with the definition of community. How do you define community?
Yeah, to me, a community is a group of people who come together around a specific purpose, around a specific goal, around a specific interest, a specific lifestyle. And the biggest thing that I think separates my definition of community from other people's definition of community is, to me, community is about connections between people and relationships between members of that community. So for example, when we talk about social media, that to me is not a community. And the reason is that social media is built for me to talk out at you, you to potentially talk back to me, and nobody necessarily connecting or talking to each other. Mm. And so those connections, so I always look for or ask myself the question, is this place, is this effort an opportunity for people to talk to each other? And that's the power, I think, of community.
The connection, strengthen the connection, strengthen the links, the communication, you spoke about purpose, the common purpose, goal, life.
Right. And I would say even think about it this way is the community set up so that it gets more valuable to every member with each new person who joins and contributes?
Love it. So there is something in common that brings them together. Some common interest, something there, and then how by being together that makes it more rich to everybody.
Not just rich, but valuable. Meaning, does somebody get more out of the community because another person joined and contributed their story, their experience, their ideas, their support? All of those types of things. So that's really, to me, the power of community.
So I think I have two questions straight from the bat here. An example of a good community that people usually are, that could be a model. That will be my first question.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples is, and I have many of them, but the one I'll share with you is one of our hosts, as we call the folks that are creating and growing communities on Mighty Networks, is a guy named Martinez Evans. And Martinez runs a community called the Slow AF Run Club. And it is for what he describes as back of the pack runners, or people who are very slow runners. And he has turned it into an incredible community for the members to connect with each other, to provide support, provide training programs that then they can do together, as well as just coming together in a place where they can be themselves. and that there's, no shame in being slow and being a slow runner, and really carving out back of the pack runners and slow runners as a unique niche that offers people, the ability to change their practices and habits, the ability to, realize their full potential and ultimately achieve the results and transformation that they want to have in their lives, but is almost impossible to do on their own. And that, I think, is just such a lovely example of a community that gets more valuable to every slow runner who's a member with each new slow runner who joins.
And I love that because I will totally fit that bill in terms. I love, I call it jogging because it's not qualify as running. It's like the 1 mile in 20 minutes is jogging. But I think maybe for this, I will be in this class of slow runners. And I love it's a place for me. There is that immediately that thing, oh my gosh, I'm going to find another a group of people there that will understand me.
Right. That is certainly the goal.
Wonderful. And so I love this example. And I'm curious to know why this passion and interest about community, that your business is all about creating the conditions and the tools to make this happen. So where did your interest about community start?
It's a great question. Communities are awesome. To me, it's like, well, what else would you be doing? Because when you start to think about the most powerful force for change, the most powerful force for, again, realizing the results and transformation we want to have in our lives, the most powerful force for navigating transitions that are inevitable in our lives, whether that's graduating from high school, whether that is taking on your first job, whether that is, losing a partner or losing your parents or just navigating life. A community sits at the center of how we do this, how we go through life together, and how we learn from other people's stories, experiences, and ideas, how we tackle things that we didn't think were possible, how we find meaning and purpose from being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And when you just come back to what is the thing that is going to unlock innovation, that is going to allow us to solve bigger and bigger problems in the world, when we need bigger, bolder solutions more now than at any other point in time, that we have an opportunity to influence the people around us and create new cultures and new lifestyles and new habits and new practices. It all comes back to the power of community, the power of bringing people together in such a way that it's not about consuming content alone, but rather creating a network of people that gets more valuable to every member with each new person who joins and contributes. And so when I take a step back and think about all the different things that I can be doing with my life, all the different ways that I can be contributing, I cannot think of a better way to contribute than being, hopefully an expert, certainly obsessed with, I think is fair to say, the power of community to help each and every one of us have the kind of impact, make the kind of contributions, and ultimately realize the kinds of lives that we want to live.
I love this. And this is music to my ears. My background is psychology, and human beings, we are social animals. We need each other.
And I almost wonder, as you say that, I almost feel like we need to have language matters. And I always feel like we need a new definition, because social has come to mean I pull up my phone and I scroll through other people's lives. And what we are talking about, and from that perspective, if you just look at the epidemic of anxiety and depression, we're not social animals in that way. We are actually community animals.
Yes.
We want to be a part of a community that sees us and that we can make real, actual connections to other people, not these, again, there's a role for it and there's a place for it, but we've over-indexed on these parasocial relationships where we feel close to people that we've never spoken to.
Yeah.
And there are too many cool people in the world that instead of following more and more people, that we are never going to speak with, building communities and cultures where we can have real relationships with other human beings on our same path who share our same goals. I think that is the untapped potential that is going to become even more important over the next decade and beyond.
Yeah, it's the community, the culture, the connection. And I love this, seeing human beings as community and animals beings, community beings. And because I like I was saying before, my background is psychology, and one of the studies that is more, fascinating when we are studying psychology in the beginning is when they speak about the Arlo study of the importance of the maternal contact, of the touch, or the importance for baby. That was Renee's speech, that the babies in an orphanage, if they don't have human contact, physical contact, they do not develop normally. They really, so that we are community animals, absolutely community beings. And we need that connection, that human connection. And in the world with so much tools, instead of connect, sometimes technology can drive us apart. And I love what you are doing with Mighty Networks, but you are creating a space and a technology to help us connect.
That is certainly the goal.
And so, because we spoke, what is community, why is so important, and now because what you are trying to provide, and how a tool to make it easy, correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how did the Mighty Network start, and how we can do nowadays to people that want to create communities.
Yeah, so, our North Star at Mighty Networks, why we exist. We want to make community building. We think about it as designing communities. We want to make it as natural and as easy and technicolor is how I think about it, as humanly possible. So how do we take the best of how communities are built, in real life, and how do we take the best of what an online experience can be and bring those two things together to unlock millions of new, vibrant communities, mastering something interesting or important together around our both joy, energy, fun, curiosity, career, health, wellness, and other important interests. And how do we do it in such a way that these independent communities, and the reason independence is so important and ownership is so important is because in the world that we want to live in, different interests and different, subgroups and different fandoms and different people want to have different features and different look and feels and different, whether it's light background or dark background, whether it's, bringing a community and online courses together, or whether it is focusing in on photos or videos. We want to unlock this creativity that allows for more and more and more people to have unique community experiences that don't exist anywhere else. By offering them a platform and a set of tools, a set of primitives that each and every one of us could create into a community that gets more valuable to every member with each new person who joins and contributes. So what does that look like today? For somebody who's like, just tell me what it does, Gina. You go to mightynetworks.com, you start a free trial, you choose. Do you want to add events? Obviously your Mighty Network comes with profiles and the ability to chat and the ability to have subgroups, the ability to live stream, the ability to, and what's very unique about Mighty Networks is our ability to offer online courses and community together in one place under your brand and instantly available on iOS, on Android, and on web. So when we think about, what we do and why we do it, we ultimately want to build software that someone can host a community that unlocks magical connections between the members of that community with as little work as humanly possible.
Love it. It's almost like in the old times, there was the TV channels and everybody was seeing the same thing. There was like everybody was follow Dallas or the big series, and there was one way of doing things. And now we are in a more fragmented, more unique, more creating communities around specific topics. And you are providing a tool that allows that flexibility of transforming, of making life easy to create that unique experiences.
That is absolutely right. I'll build on it and tweak what you just reflected back in one specific way, though, which is communities have existed for millennia that are different from each other. We are not meant to live in a world where there's a monoculture, meaning every single person gets their connection to the world through an activity or news feed that is just whizzing by you. And they all look the same. You might have different content in your activity feed. You might have different people that you follow. But fundamentally, as we spend time, whether it is in Instagram or whether it's in TikTok or Twitch or any of the new and emerging platforms, they're all the same thing. They are one size fits all. And as human beings, if anything, the beauty of us is that we want things that are novel. We want things that are different. And, communities, there have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different communities and sub-communities and people doing different things based on their where they lived, what natural resources were available in those places. And what we are just simply trying to do, and I think it's only going to get easier and more exciting over the next decade, is how do we bring what has made communities unique and really strong ties, how do we bring that into a digital and real world context? Well, we can do that through a different kind of software than what exists today on social media, or even amongst the established community platforms where, they were all built for people who already knew each other to be able to chat or play video games together or work in a startup or go deeper with a subgroup of people you already knew. If you think about Facebook groups, and they've all been utilized for this much broader set of use cases of strangers wanting to try to use them. And so the end result has been that it's been super hard to create community online and in the real world. And we at Mighty Networks are really coming at the problem by saying, hey, what about if we make and start with the assumption that people are strangers and that the software actually has to work harder to turn those strangers into connections that then can become collaborators and ultimately friends?
Love it. And so what are the essential elements to make this work, to make a community thrive?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a whole framework that has been proven over and over again. 9,000 people have been through our community design is the framework, our community design masterclass. And today we run a community design accelerator. And fundamentally, when you are creating a community, you need a motivation for that community to exist. And it needs to be explicit, meaning people need to be very clear. Who is this community for? What am I going to get from it? What are the results and transformation that I'm going to get from this community? And then how are we going to get there? We talk about this as reaching people through a big purpose. And the big purpose of a community is essential to creating a thriving community. Just essential. And so we have a whole way of getting to your big purpose that's super easy.
So just to give the example that you gave in the beginning about the community for the slow runners.
For sure.
So the motivation, the purpose is that creating a space for people that run slow to feel that they are welcome.
It's not just that they feel welcome. So the way that a big purpose, and there's a very specific formula for it. So it's I or we bring together, and then who you bring together. So in this case of Martinez, I bring together slow runners or beginner runners or people that are running for something other than weight loss to learn new tools and techniques for running slowly and not hurting yourself and building your health. To be able to connect with other slow runners. And this is the key phrase, so that we can take on bigger and bigger challenges that make us feel alive, realize our full potential in our health journey without the shackles of weight loss and a sense of pain, and ultimately thrive physically and through the joy of exercise and the joy of running that we experience together. That's the power of a big purpose sentence.
Okay, so that essentially there has to be that motivation. There has to be clarity about what are the results,
Yes.
What is the transformation. There has to be a path how to get there. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I love it. And you have these. So they say you have part of the structure of the software is to teach this design, these communities with these elements and all of that. And like you say, you have more than 9,000 people that already went through this.
Went through the framework, yeah. Went through our course.
The framework. And I'm curious, how do you see this applying? Because the online world is really an amazing tool that anybody can go and be part of and experiment with. But how do you see in this world with the great resignation and the companies, how should small and large businesses leverage the power of community building?
I think that's a great question. What I would say is that small and large companies and brands, they serve human beings. Human beings want and are hungry for community. The biggest mistake that I've seen businesses make as it relates to community is that they think that they want to build a community that benefits them and essentially makes people better customers of their product by talking almost exclusively about their product, as opposed to approaching community building with who is my customer, but what do they want in their lives? How are they a full person? And how could we build a community where we are connecting those people to each other in pursuit of mastering something interesting or important to them? And so you can start to think about, how community building is incredibly complementary to marketing. It's not the same thing, but rather it is a much more authentic and powerful force for bringing people together, building deeper relationships that ultimately deliver, ideally, more retention, as well as more growth. Because what do we do as people when we find experiences that deliver results and transformation in our lives? We tell people about it. So I would say the biggest opportunity is, can you imagine a world for your brand, for your product, for your service, where there is value being created as the connector and as the host of your customers and prospects, meeting and building relationships with each other? And if you can do that, starting from the outside in, meaning starting from what is it that your customers want from each other, and how can you, as that connector, as that host, unlock that value.
Love it. And is go back again, why the motivation, the purpose, for what is the result, what is the transformation, and now.
Yeah, and it cannot be limited to, I want to build a community because we need to grow faster and have longer retention. It needs to be, well, what is that value that your members are getting from your community and each other, both in the context of potentially utilizing your product, but also, and probably more importantly, in their lives.
And from the top of your head, do you have an example of a big company that has done this, or at least some of these elements well?
For sure. I mean, I think one of my favorite examples is TED. When you think about what TED has done as a brand, it's not just marketing messages out to people, but it's really about how are you bringing that network together such that it gets more valuable to every member with each new person who joins and contributes in exploring ideas. Another example would be Mind Body, and they are a platform for health and wellness small business owners, essentially. And when you start to look at the opportunities that they have found by bringing together their customers, their small businesses, not in just the context of how they use the software, but rather how they are able to build strong and successful businesses. That's the power of a community.
Love it. So where people, if this is something somebody is listening and want to learn more, there is any book, TEDx or TED Talk that you recommend? And of course, then also the Mighty Networks where they can find more information about. But what kind of resources do you think that will be great starting points?
Yeah, we deliver a bunch of resources through community design, through Mighty Community. So it's just, if you go to mightynetworks.com, you'll see a link to the community. And that is just, certainly I'm biased, but I think it's just a fantastic place to start. It is designed to be a fantastic place to start.
Created with that. So if mightynetworks.com will be the place to go to start to explore. Love it. And if people want, because you also do public speaking, you do keynoting, where people can go to know more about you and how to get you if they want to have you as a keynoter.
I would also say Mighty Community. That's basically
the hub.
That is the hub of what we do and how we're doing it. But you can also follow me on Twitter. I'm just Gina B.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Expanding possibilities, the Mindset Zone.
Thank you for listening, and remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can find all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. As always, I'm so grateful you are here. Expand what's possible for you, for the ones around you, for the world.